Hello and welcome to another episode of Bare Bones Wargaming, a show with no bells, no whistles, no frills, just a man, a camera, and his game. This episode, well, let's just say we're going to keep with my theme I've been doing for the last month. I know it's been a while since I've seen y'all, but it's been a bit of a BSC month here at the Korchnoi household, so yeah. But in the time, I've been studying and gaming quite a few games on, I guess, what some would consider the greatest commander of all time, and others perhaps the second greatest after Alexander the Great. That, of course, is the one, the only. Dun 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 dun. That's right. To arm, citizens, form your battalions. So, doing Napoleon 1807, which is done by Chacos. This is a French company, as I recall, and this just came out about a month ago or so. So, follow up to last year's game of 1806, which of course is a war with Prussia, when Prussia decided, well, quite frankly, foolishly, to take on Napoleon by themselves. Not a good plan. So, this one actually covers several campaigns. It covers the Poltusk, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, and then also the, I'm not going to lie to anybody, I have never, and if someone wants to tell me in the comments, by all means do, this one. I still don't know how you pronounce that after all these years. Not that I'm the world's greatest Napoleon expert, but... And then there's also the Friedland Campaign, too. One of the cool things about this game is there's a number of scenarios that you can do for this. There's historical setups, there's free setups, there's a combination one that you can do, combining 1806 with 1807. So there's a lot here going on with this game. A lot of interesting things, and to me, it's been a very enjoyable operational level simulation. Hopefully, they're going to come out with more games. So much so that I'm even thinking about trying to make my own version using their structure and stuff for like 1813, which I think is a fascinating campaign in and of itself. So anyway, all that aside, let's take a look here at the 1807, the Friedland Campaign. Now this is the historical setup that I have here on the board in front of you. Okay, and as you can see, the map is wonderful. I got the neoprene map. That's why it's not really, I can't really zoom out any more than I am unless I actually bring the camera back. I could do this, but yeah, it does require a decent amount of space to play the game. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and let's get rolling here. We'll take a look. And by the way, one other thing I want to say is that the player aid card for this game is outstanding. Does a nice job of summarizing everything. There are a few rules that are a little tricky, as I'll talk about with gameplay here, because this is a, I don't know, 6 or 7 times now I've played this game. I haven't played the combined 1806, 1807 game, but I've played all the other scenarios for them. Okay? Alright. So, each turn, you basically start off with each side drawing 3 cards. So we'll start with the Russians. Here, we'll draw their 3 cards. Now, of course, having cards of any kind can be a drawback for solo play, depending on how you view things and flexibility and stuff, which, of course, to me, it doesn't take anything away, but of course I can also appreciate what it does add if you end up with a 2-player game. Now, some cards, oh, this is perfect. What a great draw. The cards are color-coded, okay, by their tops. Some cards must be played immediately. They are red-labeled cards, like this one. Some cards can be played for their event, like the blue labeled card here. Which, actually, I did not know this. I learned this recently in my reading. That something that Napoleon and I have in common is we both have a son named Alexander. He had an illegitimate son to this Polish, I don't know if she's a princess, I forget. But anyway, nobility anyway. one of his illegitimate children, which I didn't realize he had so many. But, sorry, we're digressing here. And then green cards, which can be played during the course of a turn, and they have symbols telling you when they can be played. For example, this is a combat card. Okay? More about the numbers and stuff in a little bit. So that is the Russian hand. Let's see what the French will draw. Yeah, the French are going to draw also a mandatory card. It's going to rain. And not in a good way. And then I drew 2 green cards. Again, color-coded. This one here I can play during the Russian turn. And this one here I can play during the French turn. Okay? Alright, so let's start off with these mandatory cards here. Now, the Russians' mandatory card says inactivity. I have to choose an area, and all the units in that area are to be flipped over as if they were on their activated side. So every unit begins the turn fresh, so to speak. Once you move them, once they're involved in a combat, even if they're attacked by the enemy, they are considered activated. They are considered spent, if you will. So let's zoom in here real quick and take a look around. Alright, you can see here we got a couple of different things going on. We have our nice little control markers. Here you can see the French control this place. You have the blocks, which represent the core of the different commanders. This one's Victor. Up here is, I think this is Lestoc. Here is Bagration. Here is Soult. And again, my French is not very good, so if I butcher any of these, my apologies. The one I know I won't butcher actually is way up here by this spot here, Davout, who I consider to be Napoleon's best marshal. I mean, my second son, my youngest son, his first name is Nicholas for a reason, Louis Nicholas Davout. So you have the different spaces. You can see here they're connected. This is a point-to-point map. Okay, so what I can do here is I'm going to pick this one here, and I think I'll make that one the inactive one for this particular turn. Okay, so I'm going to play that event, and I'm going to flip them over, and then it'll be time to play the mandatory French event, which, by the way, is one of the most annoying events in this game. So again, you have 2 sides. I'm going to flip them over to where it shows his symbol side there. Okay. Alright, let's go back out to the big picture here. Alright. So, the other one is rain. I'm only happy when it rains. Well, yeah, something like that. So, any stack that's activated suffers additional fatigue points. I'll show you how that works in a moment. And you lose 1 movement point. What the whatty what? Yep, rain was annoying back then, without a doubt. Okay? So, I'm going to put this over here on the side and mark it with a big green die. Which again, the neoprene mat is so big you really can't even hardly see that. It's over there in the corner. If you take a look here, you can see where I marked it. Okay? Alright. So I've played those 2. And we're all set with that. Now, the next part of the turn, after you draw your 3 cards, and you can have as many cards as you want in your hand. You can hold on to them as much as you want. Not necessarily a good thing, because the cards not only serve as events, but they also serve for movement factors, which we'll see here very shortly, and also for combat as well, too, if you choose that combat system. There's actually 2 different ways you can do a combat system here. I'll talk about both of them here in a moment, because we'll try to get some fighting done here to demonstrate the game and show you how it works. Okay. Speaking of which, at the beginning of the next part, which is the initiative phase, to find out who gets to go first, either side, starting with the French, can play a blue headline card, a blue event card. Okay, so now this one here, during this turn, Napoleon does not provide any bonuses to the stack he accompanies. And as you can imagine, Napoleon provides quite a few bonuses. Okay, however, this will give us a chance to talk about some of these. So let's take a look here. The blocks have on them the different skills and abilities of each commander. Napoleon, you see the star there, that indicates he's the overall commander. The little man indicates that there's extra movement points involved. +1 on the card is the combat cards if you choose to go the card method. There's also a dice method. And the little X down there at the bottom with the orange circle is 1 less fatigue if Napoleon is with you. So Napoleon can't use any of that. He's too busy hanging out with his little Polish princess, so to speak, to be able to do that this turn. Okay? Alright, so once both players have a chance to play a blue card, and of course you don't have to if you have one, then we decide who gets the initiative. Deciding the initiative is pretty straightforward. Both players draw one card off the top of their deck and compare the numbers. So here I have the Russian. As you can see, there's white here and blue here to tell you who's who. So the Russians have 2, the French, or have 3 rather, the French have 2, so the Russians go first. In the event of a tie, the French get to go first. Okay? Alright, now, both sides go back and forth, alternating here, activating their forces. You can activate units individually, you can activate them as stacks as well too. Okay? Of course, the more men you try to move around, of course, thinking about this time period, the logistics and everything of it, the more difficult it becomes. And of course, with this rain event, it really, really becomes difficult. Okay? So what I'll do here is I'm just going to quickly formulate a plan for the Russians. I think what I'll do is I will, just to show you how it works, we're going to go up here and we are going to attempt to crush Marshal Ney right off the bat. Let's see if we can get him. Okay? So right up here, sorry, I'll have to move you around a little bit because again, this map is huge. Which again, the older I get, the more I love the bigger things, so to speak, because it's just easier to see and play on and, you know, the whole 9 yards, so to speak. Okay? So, I'm going to attempt to take Bennigsen's forces and march them one space over here and fall on Marshal Ney. So we'll see if we can get ourselves a combat here right off the bat. Okay? Now, when you activate a stack, if you activate just one unit, then you get whatever movement points are available to it. If you activate a stack with more than one, like for example here, and Bennigsen doesn't count as he is the commander, there are 2 blocks here underneath him, you have to subtract 1. So for example, if you have 4 movement points, the first block moves free, the second one will cost you 1 movement point, so you're now down to 3 automatically. If you have 2 more blocks, that 4 would become a 2, and so on and so forth. Of course, if you end up with no movement points, then you don't get to move, and the stack's been activated. So too bad, so sad. Okay, that's life, as Frank would say. So let's see what we get here. Now, to find out how many movement points you have, you draw a card. Okay, and let's see if it'll focus for us. There we go. I pulled a 3. Now, again, like I said, the cards do like triple duty here. Actually, wait, 1, 2, yeah, triple duty, quadruple duty actually in some ways. So the 3 here is the movement points. All right, now it's going to be -1 because we have an extra core that I'm trying to activate with the stack. But remember, we also had the rain event, so now we're 3 -1 to 2 -1 again is 1. However, that is just enough to get moving. But as the rain card said, any stack that's activated suffers 1 additional fatigue point immediately and loses 1 MP, which we already factored in for the rain. Now, what are we talking about with the fatigue points? Well, let me go ahead and slide Bennigsen and company down here to fall upon Marshal Ney, and I'll show you what we're talking about here, okay, with that. So let me zoom back out here because I want to show you part of the game, and this game does cover a little bit of space. Part of the game are these charts, which actually work very well. Once you get the hang of it, it's very simple, okay, to do. Each chart here, let's just pick somebody. Let's see, let's pick, yeah, let's pick Ostman here because he's pretty easy to see. He's toward the bottom too. Okay. Now, each one of these charts has a number of blocks to it. The green blocks in this case are infantry. The pink are cavalry. Okay. The number of blocks not only tells you the strength of your force, but also how many combat cards you're going to draw. So if you see here on this, you can see this yellow line. This yellow line is very important. Not only does it tell you how many combat cards or dice you'll have involved, but it also tells you whenever your units are starting to get way fatigued and worn out and eventually could disintegrate from fatigue as well too. Okay, as you can see, the bottom row is empty because that's where you're going to put your fatigue marker. So the stack that I have here, as Golitsyn and Doktorov is part of it. Okay, so I'm going to go, and let me tilt this up to where Doktorov is. Here he is. And I'm going to go ahead and give him 1 fatigue marker. Right here. Okay? So now I will continue to add them on there until he reaches up here where this skull is. If you ever reach this far, which is, I believe, the 9th one, if you go higher than 8, then the core disintegrates. Okay, and that's important. Not only is it removed permanently from the game, but also losses are big for victory points. Okay, so however many more losses you can inflict on the enemy, you know, as Napoleon said, you know, the thing that's most important is destroying the enemy's army. So the more losses you inflict, the greater the points. And if a core disintegrates, even if it has a strength of, say, 6, if it disintegrates from fatigue, your opponent is going to get those 6 victory points. So you need to be careful how hard you're marching your men. Okay. There's the recovery phase of the game where you can basically do what it says. You can rest your troops, and if troops do not move for the entire turn, they lose all the fatigue they have accumulated on them, whether it's 1 or 6, okay, or somewhere in between. All right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put the 1 fatigue marker on him because of the event, and let's head back over here to our battle, to our main event, if you will. All right. So we moved them. They moved into here. They're ready to attack. Now, if there had already been a Russian unit here, you wouldn't be able to combine them. In order to get a combined attack, you'd have to move several units here, and then the next turn, activate them to attack, which of course allows your opponent to disengage as well. Oh, and see, again, like I said, this game has a lot of small... tricky's not perhaps the proper word, but it has a number of critical rules that are easy to forget. One of them is when you move your forces into a space with an enemy unit or you disengage from one, you also get a fatigue point. So I'm going to have to give a fatigue point to Galitzin as well too. Okay, so let me find Prince Galitzin here. There he is, and he's going to end up with a fatigue point as well. Okay, now when a unit moves into a space that is going to potentially cause combat, you have these really cool arrows that you put down on the game board, and you use those to mark where your line of retreat will be if you have to retreat. Okay, so we're all set here. All right, we're ready to roll for this battle. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to yank these blocks out of here, and I'm going to mark the battle site, which is what I usually do anyway, and I'll bring you down here to the bottom of the map, and we'll talk about how combat works. Okay, now with combat here we go. Okay, we've got these folks against Ney. Now, again, depending on your strength, that determines the number of cards or the number of dice you get to roll. Now, this game does come with custom dice. Okay, the dice have different sides to them. They have the circle markers, which are fatigue. The X ones are losses. Some sides are blank. Some sides only have fatigue. Some sides have both, like I showed you a little bit ago. Okay, so when you engage in a battle, depending on your strength, you will get X amount of cards. Okay, so looking here, Doktorov and Galitzin. Galitzin has a strength of 3, and so is, I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that right, Doktorov has also 3 too. So they would only get 1 combat card apiece. Okay, now Bennington has the +1 combat card here, so that would give another one. So that would give them 3 total. But if you attack while moving, that's going to reduce the number of combat cards or dice that you get. Okay, so in this case, they would only actually get to roll 2 dice totally. Okay, now if it was doing the combat card method, you'd be looking at the bottom of the cards to determine what happens. Okay, and you can see down here with the combat cards, it shows you how many hits you have and then how many fatigues you inflict on the enemy too. So again, it's like the dice, and according to the rule book and stuff, it basically statistically comes out to the same thing. So whether you prefer to use the cards or the dice is up to you. However, one advantage of using the cards is you will cycle through things again sooner. So if you end up having a card drawn with a high movement factor to it, like say a 5 or a 6, it may not come back through the deck as fast if you're using the dice than if you're using cards for combat, because of course you're burning more cards to fight. Okay? Alright, so they will have 2 dice. Marshal Ney has a strength of 4, so he will have 1 die to start off with. Okay? And Ney has no benefits to him in his situation there. Okay? Now, we can go ahead and play a combat card if we want, but the Russian card I have is for defensive purposes only, so I can't play that combat card in this particular area. However, defensive terrain comes into effect too, and basically the only defensive terrain is if you're in a green spot or if you are in a fortified city that is controlled by you. Then you get some extra bonuses too. Okay. Now in this particular case, Ney is in the woods, so Ney is going to end up with 2 dice, just like his attacker. So let's see who's going to end up winning this battle. So we'll do the Russians first. So the Russians roll their 2 green dice and inflict 2 fatigue points on Marshal Ney. Alright, so they warm out. But no hits. That's important here, and we'll find out why in just a moment. So Marshal Ney, the bravest of the brave. Vive le Empereur! Okay. So he did the same thing. Okay? Alright. So fatigue points. Now fatigue points have to be distributed evenly as possible. So in this particular case, both sides inflict 2 fatigue points on each other. So they will be divided between the 2 Russian units. Remember, Bennington is the overall commander, so he doesn't actually have combat units attached to him. So both Golitsyn and Doktorov will both go up to level fatigue 2 because of their marching and their engaging. Now Ney, of course, since he's all by himself, he has to take the brunt of this all, so he actually will have to deal with both fatigue points going on his track. Okay? Now, the winner of the battle is whoever inflicts more hits. Well, in this particular case, nobody inflicted any hits whatsoever. So it's basically a tie. If there's a tie, there's no retreat, nothing like that happens. Both sides just stay in place. So this is kind of like a draw. And of course, you can imagine now, both sides will be sending out messengers to basically say, hey, I need help. Let's concentrate our forces here. As Napoleon said, march dispersed, fight concentrated. Now, if one side had won, then you could talk about pursuit, okay, which can only be done in a clear space, not in a wooded space, not in a city space, a fortified city space, okay, with that. Okay. One thing I do want to mention about combat in this game is there's no siege rules to this, okay. There are sieges which are dictated by the scenarios, but the sieges basically play themselves out and help to count for victory points at the end unless the other side gets a combat unit in there. Alright? So, our first battle, an indecisive skirmish, you could say. And now we'll take these gentlemen and move them back up to the map where we had our fight. As soon as we find our battle site. Where are we? Where did we go? Oh, went too high. There we are. We're right there. Okay? And now everybody will be turned face down because the battle's over. Now again, notice, even though Marshal Ney did not actually activate this turn, he still is exhausted. His unit cannot activate now because he was attacked. Okay? Alright. And that's basically one activation and how all that works. So let's go ahead and let's see now with the French. Let's see what they are going to be able to do. So obviously Marshal Ney is going to need some help. But what should I do here? Well, I don't want to move Davout because I don't want to leave this victory space open. Soult is down here. I could spend Lannes. I think it's how you pronounce that. Again, I took Spanish in high school. Okay, that's my excuse. Reason, whatever you want to call it. So I could start to march him up, but again, with this rain, it's kind of murderous, okay? I could go over here and go with the Child of Victory, Messina, but again, he is so far away that he has got a long, long way to trek, okay? So I don't want to move Victor, because again, Victor is guarding a space here, so I could either do Mortier or Lannes. Now, If I choose to move a block that then would move into a space with a block that's already there, you have to stop. You can only pass through a space, even with your own people, if you have a card that gives you that special ability to do so. I think the French actually are the only ones that actually have that special ability and can do that. Okay, so keep that in mind. You can't even march through your own friendly forces to get from point A to point B. Okay, let alone, of course, the enemy. You have to stop. And if nothing else, like here, I could have chosen not to attack, but I wanted to show you guys how attacks work and stuff, so that's why I just went ahead and pounded in there, blundered in, meeting engagement style, if you will. Okay? Alright. So, well, let's see. Despite the rain, you know what? Let me see if I can get lands to go. Alright, so I pulled a 4 card. Okay, well, that's pretty good. 4 minus 1 for the rain. Now, I won't have anything else because there's only 1 block there. Now, the question is, where should I take him with 3 movement points? Well, let's see. I could go 1, 2, 3, and then maybe next turn, if I win the initiative, I can march him up to reinforce Ney. Or I could march him up to here and reinforce Soul, and then next turn they could go together and attack Bagration. Or perhaps, if Bagration moves and stuff, try to put pressure on Königsberg. I think Königsberg up there on the Baltic Sea. So, or I could march him over here, 1, 2, and concentrate him with Victor, and then also march up along the coast to put pressure there too. Dun, 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 dun. That's a good question. What should we do here? Let's go ahead, and I think Ney will be okay on by himself, but I'd like to put some pressure here. So you know what? I am going to go ahead and march him over here where Victor is. Now, again, he will get 1 extra fatigue. Okay? And if you march about 3 movement points on a turn, you start to get extra fatigue. So like if you do 4 movement points, it's 1 extra fatigue. 5 is 2 extra. 6 is 3 extra. 7, if you manage to get that high, is 4 extra, which is like what. Okay, so I'll march him up here. Flip him over to show that he has been activated for this turn. I'll put a fatigue marker on his card. And now we're back over to the Russians having their activation here. Alright, well, now the Russians, of course, might want to try and concentrate and put more troops over there, so if they win the initiative next turn, they could pounce on Ney if I don't reinforce him. So with that thought in mind, I will go ahead and try to activate Gorchakov back here, because if I can get 2 movement points, I can get him concentrated up there, and then really maybe give it an AB to Ney next turn. Okay, so let's see. Survey says, SpaghettiOs, he's going to come up a little short. Okay, 2 minus 1 for the rain is only 1 movement point. Now, if I had a forced march card, I could play that, and he would end up with 2. Okay. Notice you have to designate the stack or unit that you're going to move before you pull the card. Now, granted, I could send him someplace else now, or I could just leave him sit still. He doesn't actually have to move if I don't want him to. But I still could bring him down and then, you know, maybe use him another way next turn, or I could leave him exactly where he is. But I still would end up with the fatigue marker because, you know, it's like you all get lined up and ready to roll and stuff, and it's like, oh, wait, no, time out, we ain't going no place. What? What? Yep, that's what I said. Alright, so, let's see. 1 movement point, but it ain't much, is it? Nope. Alright, you know what? We'll go ahead and march him down to here. And again, you know, I'm not pretending this is, you know, some great military genius is the best strategy, anything like that. And of course, you know, then again, one could say, maybe I don't do my best strategies here, just in case I play any of y'all someday. I don't want to be giving away my ideas and plans. Okay? Alright, back to the French. So Ney is kind of on his own. Now, should I try to bring... Yeah, you know what? Let me try to bring Messina over. Try to see how far I can get him this turn, because I do have a forced march card. So maybe I can get him a decent range here. Okay, so I pulled a 3 card for him. So 3 minus 1 for the rain is 2. I will play my forced march card. Okay, and again I can play it because it has the French symbol. And that will take it back up to 3. So 1, 2, 3, and flip him. There he goes. Okay? And he will get just 1 fatigue because he only moved 3 movement points, and he's only getting the fatigue because of the rain card. If it wasn't for the rain card, he wouldn't have ended up with the fatigue. Alright, back to the Russians. Now, I could, because I had a lot of low number cards now, so I could go ahead and gamble that I can get Constantine to march 1, 2, 3 and concentrate and then attack. Okay, if you start a space, starting a space with an enemy force, you don't actually have to pull a card to attack. So you don't have to worry about getting at least 1 point. It doesn't work that way. Once you're in the space, you basically can launch an attack. Now again, it's an activation. Your troops will be done for the turn, but again, you can activate. So, you know what? I'm feeling lucky. Do you feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? Well, yeah, I guess the title's kind of mocking me of that card, isn't it? Last effort. Yeah, okay. 2 minus 1 is, oh, hey, we've been here before. 1. If it weren't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. Gloom, despair, and agony on me. Alright. Well, that sucks. Alright, the French. Let's see. Should I go ahead and activate Le Empereur along with Murat and Becerres and try to bring them up into here? Or should I try to bring Mortier and bring him up to here and concentrate and just push along this Baltic coast right to here? That's a good question. Because the numbers, you see down here, Danzig, the numbers are how many victory points you'll get at the end of the turn if you control that space. Okay, so it is important. You don't get those to the end. You automatically and instantly get victory points for destroying enemy units, okay, in battle. And most of the scenarios have automatic victory. So like the victory points, if they ever hit 0, the French win. Vive le Empereur. If they hit 20, then it's good for Mother Russia. Okay, long live Tsar Alexander the First. All right, so you know what? Let me go ahead and see. Maybe the French will be luckier. Let's see. Survey says, well, I think we all can do this math, right? Jeez. All right, so he gets a fatigue marker and is going nowhere fast. All right, not such a good start. As you can see, the rain event is rather crippling in the game. It really does slow everybody down. And here's the really bad news. Both sides have a rain event in their deck. Alright, now at this point, I think the Russians, I've done just about everything I can with them. Unless I want to try and take Bagration and plow into Seoul. I don't know if I want to do that, though. Let's see, Bagration has a strength of 5, which would give him 2 cards. But remember, he would lose 1 because he is moving. Yeah, that's probably not the best idea in the world. Yeah, because Seoul is pretty strong. He has a strength of 7 altogether, so he would get 2 cards as well. So, in other words, it would be 2 to 1. So, unless you get incredibly lucky with the dice, that's probably not a good idea. Okay. Alright, I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and end the activation portion of this, so we'll have both sides pass. So then I can show you the last step of the turn, which is the recovery step. Okay. Now again, the recovery step, you know, it's interesting sometimes, at least from my perspective. This happens to me, that I get kind of caught up in focusing on the big things, and sometimes I forget the little details. Like the first couple times I played this, I completely forgot to check the fatigue and see if anybody had disintegrated, if anybody had suffered losses or not. Okay. So each corps now, first things first, on a still to be activated side, would recover all their fatigue. Well, of course, since this is the first turn, then nobody has fatigue except the units that move, so that is not applicable here. Okay. All right. Second thing you do then, each player can play 1 card from their hand, and only 1, and remove the number of fatigue points from a unit. Okay. So, for instance, here the Russians with this card here you can see there's the little supply wagon, and then there's the battle one. So this is the half of the card you would use in battle. So this would be like the blank side of a die, and this you'd use here. Now I could eliminate 2 fatigue off a unit if I wanted, but then of course it goes in the discard pile, and I would give this up. But I don't know if I'm going to be playing a defensive battle with the Russians anytime soon. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead and play this, and I'm going to take the 2 fatigue off Doktorov, so he's ready to rock and roll for battle next turn. Now, the French, I also have the same thing with 2. And I might need Marshal Ney fresh. Now notice this one here, the combat card, has 2 fatigue, kind of like the dice that we saw before. Okay, but I could also take 2 fatigue off here, but again, I wouldn't be able to cancel a Russian order if I don't save it. So you know what? I'm going to leave Ney alone. I'm going to leave the bravest of the brave be. Okay? Now, next thing you do, and this is where I said before about that yellow line. So let's kind of shift over here again to the unit card, and we'll zoom in here a little bit. Okay? This magic yellow line, it runs down here between the 4 and the 5 boxes. Okay? So you're going to check and see, does anybody have fatigue markers 5 and up? Okay? If they do, then you lose 1 strength point. And yes, that does count for victory points. Okay? In this case, of course, since it's so early in the game, we don't have that problem at all. Okay? For either side. Neither side has gotten that high on their fatigue. Now, once that's done, then you flip over all the units that were activated this turn. Flip them back to their activated side, or to their ready sides, I'm sorry. And now we'll be ready to play the next turn. So let's draw our 3 cards, and we'll see if we can precipitate a big battle. We'll see who gets the initiative here at the beginning of this turn. So the Russians draw their 3 cards, and what did we get here? We got 1, 2, 3 cards. So 2 green ones. One that can be used either for pursuit, that's what the little, that's what the little man is, or used during their own turn. But again, I have another red one here, surrender. Oh no, if there's a siege marker in the Grandens area, replace the citadel with a French citadel, and victory points are reduced by 1. Well, unfortunately, that is right here. The yellow markers in this game are sieges. So, they weren't able to hold out, so we replaced that with a French one, which also means now the French will be getting that extra victory point at the end, unless a Russian army shows up there, and now the victory points are reduced from 5 to 4. Okay? Bad news for the Russians. Alright, let's see what the French have. The French have a couple of green cards here. Again, another pursuit card. And they also have a card that can be played during their turn with bridges. You can't destroy bridges in this game because, of course, you have the Vistula here among other rivers depicted in this area of play. Now, I did get a blue one, too, about the Tsar's impatience. Okay, but a good chance the Russians are going to attack me this turn, so I'm probably not going to want to play that, okay, as the French. So now, let's find out who gets the initiative. The Russians... Ooh, they pulled a 4. Okay. The French. This is going to be rough. I think Marshal Ney is in danger. Oh, look at that! I pulled a 5. Oh, that's terrible. Okay. But I'll tell you what. I'm basically ready to wrap up this video. So let me just show you a big battle. We'll pretend that the 5 was the Russians and the 4 was the French. And we'll do this big battle up here with Bennigsen and Doktorov and all those guys against Ney. And again, since they won't have to lose a die, let's see if we get a different result this time from our battle. Okay? And then we'll call it quits on this particular video. Okay, so this time, since they didn't move, they won't have to worry about losing that 1 die. So they'll each have 1 die, plus Bennigsen's 1 die. That is 3. Okay, nobody has any combat cards to play. Marshal Ney will get 2 because remember he is in that forested space. So the Russians, oh, well, they did cause some damage this time, something that did not happen last battle. So there they go. They got one blank side, but they also got a hit. All right. Big Red, as I like to call Marshal Ney. Oh, well, this is going to be another indecisive battle. Okay, both sides causing one hit. But Ney is going to be in worse shape here because remember, I used I still got to get used to using my pointer here. I used the Russian fatigue card to reduce the fatigue on these guys, so that will help them. But now Marshal Ney is about to jump up to 4, which is going to soon affect his combat ability. Once you cross that yellow line, once you get 5 fatigue, you also reduce your combat effectiveness down by 1. Okay, so not a good battle here overall, although Ney is holding his own. Now, of course, he needs his fellow Frenchmen to rush up there to help support him because he won't be able to retreat. Remember, once you're attacked, then that's the activation for your force that turn. You won't be able to do anything. Okay? All right. So hopefully this gives you the basics of how this game works. Again, as a 2-player game, I can see where it would be a lot of fun because, of course, you don't know what cards your opponent's holding, what they might play on you and such. The cards, of course, are helpful because since you have to draw them to get movement points, it's very solo friendly in that respect. I haven't found anything knowing what the cards are that has been a real problem. Sometimes I roll a die to decide whether I want to play the counter order card or not. It's kind of up to me. Other times it's obvious if you want to do things or should. Or of course, if you're one side and the other side has the counter order card, you might do something just to provoke it, to get them to use it, as it were, and hope for something better the next turn. Okay? So, I do like this system. It's very easy to play. It plays very quickly. I think it does reflect the realities of warfare at this time. It's not easy to concentrate your armies and get into a big battle. You can have your little skirmishes, your little meeting engagements and such, which of course, everybody talks about, Austerlitz and Jena and Wagram and Leipzig and stuff. But, the smaller battles, sometimes are the ones that get lost in the shuffle and are not remembered, even though the size of the forces were considerably smaller. And sometimes that can happen with this game because, you can have just single corps going at each other, so to speak. So overall, I like this a lot. I'm glad I did the Kickstarter on this. It did take some time and effort to get it fulfilled, but hey, it was worth it in the end. Soon here, obviously, in the next couple of weeks, I'll be doing my 10 best and 10 worst to me, new to me games rather, for 2020, and like I've done the last, I guess just 1 year so far. This is the second year I'll be doing it, and of course, this game is going to be somewhere on that top 10 list because right now, and I've tried a couple different Napoleonic operational games, over the years, not just this year, but right now this is my favorite one. It's just, it's a lot of fun to play. It's interesting. At some point, I can't wait to try the combined scenario, combining the 1806 and 1807 games together. Yeah, and of course, I enjoy playing the Friedland scenario because that Jagoff Bernadotte is not in it. So why Napoleon didn't have him shot, I'm not sure. Oh, that's right. There was some kind of marriage thing going on. Anywho. So, yeah. Sorry to any Swedish viewers, but I do think he was a jag. Of course, every country's had leaders that are jags, so we'll just let that go at that. But anyway, if you're in a Napoleonic warfare and you're looking for an operational game that is fun, it moves quick, it's very engaging, I would highly recommend picking up a copy of this. Now, hopefully, they'll be doing future titles. Now, what nobody knows for sure, but of course, the most logical thing next would be 1809. Excuse me. Unless, of course, they were going to do Napoleon's brief stay in the Peninsular Campaign. which I just finished reading Blundering to Glory. And the author there asserts, which is something I've never heard anybody assert before, that he firmly believes that Napoleon had gone back to Spain in either 1810 or 1811. He could have crushed everything and been done with, and that would have been the end of it. That's interesting. So, yeah, it's definitely something to think about. So, okay. Now, next episode. I'm not sure what next episode is going to be. It might be my 10 best 10. Where's Black Swan from Vento Nuovo Games was just released yesterday. Got the email about it. I'm super stoked because almost all their games have been a hit for me as opposed to a miss. The only game I've purchased of theirs so far that's been a total swing and a miss for me actually was Blocks in the East. I actually sold that one. But all the other ones, the 341 games, Moscow, Leningrad, Kiev, Stalingrad Inferno, Bloody Monday, even the 1914 one, which has the diceless combat system, which I'm not a big fan of. I still have enjoyed it. I mean, their games are a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to this because the Black Swan game is basically Europe, World War II in Europe. So I'm hoping it'll be a nice companion piece when I want something a little meatier as opposed to right now my go-to game with European theater, especially sandbox-wise, is actually Triumph and Tragedy, which I'm looking forward to the Pacific version of that. So, but I've been very heavily in Napoleon here in the last month, and I've been playing a lot of my Napoleonic 20 series. I've picked up a few other games that I've tried. I'm still looking for a Napoleonic strategic game, and I've been actually kind of dabbling in designing my own. So we'll see. Hey, you know, who knows? In the forever future, yeah. Okay. So there you have it. I guess one parting final thought is about the World at War magazine number 75. The hang on a second, I'll show you. Which just came out. I literally just picked this up this week too, which I was so stoked about this one because, you know, I was like, when I saw it and heard about the description, I'm like, dude, Midway Solitaire, yes! And then I got it and I started to look at the rules and I was like, uh-oh, it's based on the Red Dragon Rising system, which the other game they tried to do that with the Central Pacific campaign, and I didn't care for that. So now I'm kind of nervous to play it. But the funny thing is, let's just show you here real quick. The map actually does look like the Midway campaign. So I don't know. Who knows? Guess we'll have to wait and see. Give it a whirl. But it is making me, so to speak, nervous in the service. So we'll see how that plays out. Okay. So, this is Tim Korchnert from Bare Bones Wargaming saying thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Either maybe doing an unboxing of Black Swan, or more than likely, to be honest at this point, since I'm still kind of experimenting with some different Napoleonic games, I'm probably looking more at the idea of the 10 best and worst new to me games of 2020 will probably be my next video. Either way, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.